Hi there, I'm Lauren Woodington and this is Thomson Reuters Backstage. This week we've got something a little bit different for you, but don't worry, we'll be back next week with more timely updates. On Monday, Thomson Reuters participated in the American Heart Association Heart Walk, and to kick off festivities, we recorded several interviews with people involved with the American Heart Association, including a very moving story from a heart disease survivor. That conversation between Backstage host Desmond Upshaw and survivor Kevin Kirksey is what we want to share with you today.
Perfect. So, Kevin, your story, it starts innocently enough with a question that you asked your doctor on the way out of an appointment. What was that question?
Well, let me answer that by saying the question that I asked is a question that later proved to save my life, and it's also a question that later proved to demonstrate to me that divine intervention is actually real. You know, at the time, I felt great. I felt fantastic. I had zero symptoms. I had no health issues or concerns of any kind. And I'm leaving a routine doctor's appointment with my primary care physician. I get to the door, I stop and I turn, and out of my mouth come these words. It went just like this. Hey, doc, I hope this doesn't sound crazy because I feel great and fantastic, but is there something we should check on the inside of my body? That was the question I asked right there.
Wow. And what happened next?
Well, he looked at me and he ordered a what they call a calcium scan. He explained to me, it lay down for 10 minutes. They take pictures and off you go and you get a result. And based upon the result, we do something or we don't do something. So I had never really acted on my health. But I went ahead and accepted an appointment to have this scan done. And this was on a Friday, and my scan was scheduled for a Monday. And throughout the weekend, I was trying to find reasons to not go to the test because I was busy at work. I had other things on my mind, but something was pulling at me and said, you might want to go do this. And so I did. I went out to the airport afterwards, went out to Northern California on business. I get to my first business meeting. My cell phone rings. It's my doctor's office. I sent it to voicemail thinking they're just calling to tell me the good news. They called a minute later. I sent it to voicemail, and I thought it was just a mistake. And when they called two more times in the next 5 minutes, I realized somebody was trying to reach me. So I called back to the office. I call her Nurse Kathy on the phone, and I said, Kathy, somebody's trying to reach me. And she said it was me. She said, the results of your test were not good. And I said, what does that mean? She goes, well, it means that it's the worst the doc has ever seen. And I said, oh, okay, what does that mean? She said, Kevin, it means you are at an extreme risk of a cardiac event or a stroke at any moment. I'm 2,500 miles away, and I'm being told that my next step could be my last. I asked her, what do I do? And she said, well, we have an appointment for you at the cardiologist team to start doing some testing this afternoon. And I said, I'm in California. What do I do? And she said, can you remain calm and come home immediately? So I went back to the airport, jumped on a plane to head back to Dallas. I jump on the Wi-Fi of the airplane. I'm emailing my wife. She knows something's up, and we're trying to research this calcium scan test. And we found on Dr. Google, we found a chart that says your results can go from 0 to 400. 0 is what you want. 400 is what you don't want. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I must not be a 0. And I don't think I'm a 400 because I saw a definition for that said probability does exist for extensive cardiac damage. I thought, that can't be me. I feel great. I don't have any damage. And so I get home that night. We had a restless night. First thing the next morning, we're driving up to the cardiologist's office, and I called Nurse Kathy. I wanted to find out what my score was. Where did I sit on this? Well, turns out I was right. It wasn't 0, and it wasn't 400. It was 6,518. It was so far off the charts. I'm surprised I didn't wreck my car. So I go into the cardiologist's office and I said, hey, I guess I've got a high score. You guys seen these before? And he said, no, we've never, these are top cardiologists here in Dallas. And they said, we've never seen one this high before. So they did some tests that day, and they concluded that I needed to go have a heart catheterization in the hospital, which is they run a catheter up in you and they look through your heart and they try to determine what's wrong. Well, the doctor that was doing that, he kind of sedated me, and we're in that procedure, and it felt like we had just started 1 minute, 2 minutes into it, and I simply said to him, "Hey doc, how's it going?" And the next thing I know, his face is right at my face. And he says to me, "Young man, you've saved your own life. Let's get you upstairs and we'll visit with you and your wife about what we do next." So when he got to the room, he basically said that he found that one of my major arteries was 80% blocked. Another major artery was 90% blocked, and a third one was 100% blocked. Zero blood flow was getting to my heart. And my wife looked at him and said, "Doctor, can you help me understand why my husband is still alive?" And he said, it's what we call God's work. The heart has a tendency to build these things called collaterals to try to feed parts of the heart that are starving. And that's what happened in your case. And that's why your husband is still alive. So at that time in that session, I was given only one option for survival. And that was very, very short term. We had to do it fast, open heart cardiac bypass surgery, which I did.
That is incredible. Okay, so once you had that, that surgery, that procedure, so what did that mean for you and your family?
I'll start with my wife and my son. It put them in a frightened state unlike they had ever been before. I recall that my wife, pre-op as well as post-op later on, didn't want to leave my side. She was, just stuck to my side everywhere I went. And I found out later when I was asking her about that, she said, I didn't know if you were going to fall down and have a cardiac event and I needed to do CPR. And she said, frankly, I am the only one that I trust to do CPR and not give up. She was afraid that somebody else might do it and give up, and she just couldn't handle that. So you can imagine that fear. I would encapsulate her fear with a following scene. I want you to draw this picture in your mind. The night before surgery, I'm going in there and they're going to stop my heart and they're going to try to repair it and they're going to try to restart it. And so you can imagine what that feels like. And my wife comes to me on the bed and she puts her hand on mine and she said, "Honey, I'd like to ask you a question. It's a very selfish question." I said, "Sure, you're my wife, whatever you want." And she said, "Oftentimes people come out of these type of surgeries having seen a light." And she said, "I want you to know if that's you, if you see a light and you're attracted to it, don't be afraid. But if you're really attracted to it, and even if you see your mom and dad and you want to go to them," she said, "the selfish question," she had tears in her eyes. She said, "Please don't go. Fight it with everything you have. I'm not ready for you to leave." What it meant for me is I had to come to terms with my mortality in a very, very short period of time. I also had to figure out, how do I give this icon of a surgeon 100% of my trust that he's going to take me in this operating room, put me out, open me up, stop my heart, repair it, and try to restore me. I'll never forget the time that I was about ready to go into the operating room, and I said goodbye to my wife and my son, and they're wheeling me into the room, and all I saw was lights and people, and I didn't know what was going on. It was pretty daunting, and I locked eyes with that machine, the heart-lung machine that was going to keep me alive while my surgery was going on, and that was a bit overwhelming for me to look at that. And I closed my eyes and I said this prayer. I said, "Dear God, I've come to terms with my mortality. My precious wife is not ready for my passing, but please take me today if it is your will to do so. And if I am to survive, I'd like your help in achieving a bucket list of the 3 most essential items in my life. And those items are, number 1, I'd like to dance with my wife again. Number 2, I'd like to hold hands with my wife and take a walk. And number 3, I'd like to meet and get to know my unborn grandchild." And I wrapped up the prayer by saying, "Thank you for the life you've given to me so far, and I give myself entirely and completely up to you." Well, obviously I'm sitting here so you know that God answered my prayer, and I've achieved my life's bucket list, so I'm pretty happy about that. Nothing else I want to do. So hopefully that gives you some perspective.
Oh, that's incredible. I'm just hearing that story is, it almost brings tears to my eyes. It's very intense, and it's very real. So I'm glad you were able to come out of it, and it sounds like things went well. So you also mentioned, Kevin, that before, that appointment that, you felt good, you didn't have any problems. It sounds like you just kind of asked the question. So post-op, what is your life like now?
Well, it sounds kind of corny at times, but I refer to myself as living something that I call Life 2.0. And that really came about as, listen, I see life through a very different lens than I ever did before today. And it's a wonderful lens for me. And this came about from a profound physical, emotional, and spiritual transformation that I went through that really began with an overabundance of little things that were done by countless, selfless, tireless caregivers when I was under their care that they did for me and my family. I'll give you an example of a couple of things. And by the way, I counted and documented over 120 of them while I was in the hospital. I remember the first time I was able to get up and walk around the nurses' station, probably 40 feet, a walk of 40 feet. And I was met with a high five and a lady saying, "You're a rock star." And those two things will stay with me the rest of my life. I remember a nurse had to check my blood sugars every hour on the hour. So she'd constantly be waking me up and taking my blood sugars. And every time I saw her coming my way, I was praying that she was bringing morphine. I was praying that she would bring me something to help deal with the pain that I was enduring. And one time she says to me, she goes, "What do you think your blood sugar test is going to be?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." I told her, and she goes, "Well, I think it's going to be this." There started a game. Now, every time I saw her, I wasn't thinking about the morphine. I was thinking about playing this game and who was going to guess my blood sugars the most. I found out, it dawned on me months later that what she was really doing, she didn't have to do this. What she was really doing was giving me a break, giving me a little peace from the pain that I was in, and I'll forever be grateful for this young lady for doing that. So that's kind of what happened is I started to internalize that, wait a minute, these people are just like me. They have life's issues and trials and tribulations, but yet they put theirs on hold, and they give and they give and they give, and they ask for nothing in return. And it made me think about, well, maybe perhaps I should start to take a look at how I live my life. And I thought, maybe what would it be like to try to live a life focused on others versus what historically had been focused on me. And I started doing that. And when I recognized that what they were doing in the hospital was really affirming my value, my relevance, my importance, I started doing that with people in my life, even strangers, family members, neighbors, people at work. And what I found out, what I learned is, as I'm affirming the value, relevance, and importance of others, it kind of brings life to people. You just do an act of kindness for a stranger and watch them come to life. And I got to thinking that, maybe there's something here that I need to do. And so I set in motion, I recognized that God spared me, and I set in motion a life to try to enhance and inspire others versus myself. And it's what I call Life 2.0. And it's the most amazing thing that I never imagined actually possible when I was living. So thanks for asking that. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. No problem. So from there, how did your involvement with the American Heart Association, how did that come about?
You guys impressed me as technologists. You'll get a kick out of this. It was a chance meeting. I'm in the technology business in the security space, internet security space, and we were doing an event here in Dallas at a well-known restaurant. We had a room full of people. I was kind of the MC. I stood up and I introduced the speakers and the topics, and it was time for me to go sit down. And I looked up. There was only one seat in that entire restaurant that was open. And I took that seat, and I started to notice that the lady sitting right next to me was asking some very good technology security type questions. And so I introduced myself to her afterwards, and I said, who are you with? And she goes, I manage risk for the American Heart Association. I said, really? I said, I've been on a journey and I've always wanted to meet somebody from the American Heart Association and express my gratitude. You guys have been with me the entire way and you still are today. And so she was kind of inquisitive and said, well, what journey? And so I told her a little bit about it. And that afternoon, I saw an email where she had introduced me to some local executives with the American Heart Association. And one thing led to the other. I went out and met with them, and I said, "Listen, you're part of my life's mission and what I'm trying to give back, and I'm trying to raise awareness and inspire. I'd like to help whenever I can." And so, I've done some speaking for them and writing, and I was kind of shocked, but pleased that for this year's Dallas Heart Walk 2020 Heart Walk, if you go onto their webpage and you'll see that for more information, there's a survival story, and they put me and my family on their webpage for this year's Heart Walk. So it's kind of cool. It's really nice to know that it reaches beyond what I can possibly do. When you're I don't know about you guys, but for me, I learned what I'm like when I'm faced with an experience like this, and I want to know a lot. I want to know, what am I going to go through? What am I going to feel? What's going to happen? How long is it going to take? They were the only source of information that could guide me through that entire process end to end. Certainly my surgeon told me how he was going to fix my problem, but he wasn't telling me anything about what it's like in cardiac rehab, what it's like when you start taking all your medications. So, they were there for me. And, they also taught me, it sounds kind of silly. They taught me how to eat. They taught me how to exercise. They taught me how to diet. It went beyond living a heart healthy life to living a good life. They tell you about how to reduce stress in your life. So I'm very grateful to that information and the research and the investment that they make in technology to fight this horrible disease.
And Kevin, if there was one thing that you could share with those watching, what would that be?
Well, I love the question, and I guess people tell me sometimes I'm a little bit too verbose, so I have two things for you, not just one.
Perfect.
I'd like to start off by sharing that the American Heart Association claims that every 40 seconds in this great country somebody suffers a heart attack. And since, you guys and myself have been talking, who knows, maybe 10, 20, 30 plus people have suffered a heart attack. And in 40 seconds from now, another one's going to do it. It's not going to stop. And so with that notion in mind, I'd like to know two things. One is, two things. One is get checked out. In the absence of anything, get checked out. Please do not allow yourself to fall victim to this notion that these things happen to the other guy. I'm living proof that that's not the case. The second thing is that raise awareness. And as you do through these types of events that you're putting on, as you do through your giving, through your fundraising, through your activity, every single phone call, email, Skype call, event, everything that you're doing directly contributes to saving, restoring, extending, and enhancing life. I'm literally living proof of that. There may be, you never know, there may be you guys sharing this video with your audience, and somebody knows something, and they take something that they heard in these interviews, either with me or your physician, shares that with somebody else. They go, oh my goodness, I need to get checked out. And all of a sudden you've saved a life. That's pretty profound.
Well, great. Kevin, wanted to just thank you for your time. You have an incredible story. I'm glad everything worked out, for the best for you and your wife and your family. And definitely appreciate your just passion and your drive to want to raise awareness and help others. So thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome. And I'm very glad to do it. Listen, I work for a living, like you guys work for a living, but my real true passion, and I mean this, is, giving back wherever I can, paying it forward, raising awareness, inspiring others, anything that I can do to help. And, I say it kind of humorously, but I say it tongue in cheek. It's quite real for me, is that, I look at this whole experience as I'm living a far better life. I went through trauma, but I'm living a far better life than I ever imagined possible. So maybe it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I thank God for, his grace in getting me through this and allowing me to achieve my bucket list. And here's the somewhat humorous part of it, but I think it's very, very true, is it's almost like God has said, okay, Kevin, I'll get you through this, but now it's time for you to help me out with something. And so that's what I'm doing. So I can't tell you this, doing this type of thing with you gentlemen is just so rewarding for me, because I just got to hope and believe that what you're going to put together is going to ultimately help and inspire somebody, which is my objective. So thank you very much. So I really can't thank you enough for doing this. And I'd like to thank you with the following. I'd like you to know something for the work that you guys do. As survivors, we move on, we move forward, but we never, ever forget. You are never, ever left behind, especially in our time of prayer. And so I cannot tell you enough how appreciative and grateful I am for every ounce of time and energy that you spend on behalf of helping society in the way that you are. It's a great thing. Thank you.